Hi, welcome to a brand new episode of Khaskura Podcast. I'm with you, Rama.
And I'm Anuja. Hello, welcome.
Hello. So today, Anuja, what are we talking about?
Today we're going to talk about personal finance.
Finance is money, yes. To describe personal finance is a term that covers savings, earning, and expenses. And that's generally what we're going to cover in this episode. And we think that talking about personal finance is important because, especially if you're a student coming to America for the first time, I think it's important for you to understand what finances are, what are the things that you need to pay attention, especially if your parents were kind of taking care of everything. So why is it important for you, Anuja? Like, why is personal finance, talking about it, important to you?
Transitioning from home to America is already there's a lot of difference and disparity. So if you're financially savvy, in the long run, it will help you fulfill the quintessential American dream. Mm-hmm. So maintaining your personal finance is a marathon, and you are supposed to keep up with it and not let it fall off.
That's a very great point. Yeah, it's definitely something you have to do continuously. It's not like, okay, I'll do it one day and you're done. It's ongoing. So we have made a list of points that we want to discuss. So do you want to go ahead with the points?
Yes. So number 1 point, live within your means and know how to budget, because you can come to America, and America is such a consumer-centric community, a society. Consumerism is like everywhere.
Capitalism, yes,
yep,
for
and
sure.
people spend their money like crazy, and we don't want you to be affected by that. We're just giving you a heads up because it is very tempting, and it is very tempting to follow fast fashion and buy all these clothes and get rid of them overnight. It makes sense to buy things what you need, especially as a student, and when you're working with a very limited budget. Your sponsor might be your parents, you might be working to go to school, so it's very essential to make that difference and really live within your means.
Definitely. And the second point that we want to talk about in personal finance is saving for emergency and saving for future. So one of the quote I heard once a very long time ago that really kind of shaped how I deal with my finances was that it's always easier to spend money after you save some rather than save money after you finish spending. So let's say, for example, if you earn $100 a month, it's always a good idea to set aside $40, $30 aside and then spend the remaining, rather than say, okay, let's see how much I spend and then whatever remainder I'll save.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, always pay your bills on time, because rent is you prepay almost, because you pay the rent and then you live for that month in that space. It's not the other way around. So always have rent money for at least 3 months ready to go. Always pay your bills first thing whenever you get paid. That way, like, all the expenses are taken care of and you have your disposable income. And then out of that disposable income, you save a bunch.
So the next point we think that you should do is we'll expand a little bit on what is credit history in America, but you definitely have to check your credit report. Depending on how responsible you are with finances, you get a credit ranking. And that affects you when you're renting a house, when you want to rent an apartment or anything. You need that when you're trying to buy or lease a car. They check your credit history. And even at some cases, when you're applying for a job, they check your credit history to see how reliable you are. So make sure your credit history is okay. Sometimes I've heard cases where it's people don't intentionally default, but they forget to pay their amount due, which affects their credit history negatively. So make sure you're on top of that and make sure you're checking it. Bank or any financial activities related to a social security number is listed on the transaction of a credit report. Somebody can steal your identity, and credit history shows you everything. If someone opened a bank in your name or open a credit card in your name, you can see all of that. So it's very important for you to monitor your credit history and keep an eye on your credit report.
Yep. And then another very important tool that you can use to keep track of your personal finances is using Excel sheet or using the Sheets version of the
Google Doc. I think it's a Google spreadsheet.
Yeah, Google spreadsheet. It's an amazing tool. You can modify it to work for your own benefit, and you can put in all your income, your expenses, items every month, and how much you're putting on your savings. Because you have all these financial services where you have your debit card and your savings account and whatnot. But it's always good to keep track of that as well, because sometimes there can be a charge that was not really supposed to be there. Sometimes it happens. It's only a machine, and sometimes humans make errors as well. So to keep track of things, always check your account, your bank statements, and keep track of your expenses and income on an Excel sheet.
Yes, definitely. So going back to Excel sheet, there was a time when I first got my job and I was making money and I could not save any. And this is a real story. So I was thinking, like, why am I not being able to save any money? So I started literally writing down, even if when I bought $1.25 coffee, I would write it down, everything. And then when I went back at the end of the week and I went back to the Excel sheet and I was spending money on stupid things like lattes, like 5 times a week. And just like little things, when you have it visually in your face, it definitely helps you reconsider and kind of rechannel your priorities. So Excel is definitely a great tool to use. And another thing, Anuja actually already touched on it about, coming to America and having everything in abundance here. So learn how to control your spending habits, right? It's very, very important. When you're growing up in Nepal, you find a certain kind of vegetables like 3 months a year versus here you go, there's everything all the time, everywhere. There's like aisles of cereal. There's like aisles of candy. And there's so many things which are so cheap. Like the shoes are so cheap and clothes are so cheap. So don't go out of control. Like I said earlier, Excel sheet is also a great tool. Try to track everything you're spending and just control your spending habit.
Yeah. And point that attaches to it is that you buy smart to begin with. Compare prices, because once you're here, you have access to all these e-commerce businesses and you can compare prices. There are some places that do price matching. You can always pursue more quality goods. And it's such a taboo back home to buy used clothes or used items. But we grew up with hand-me-downs, it's fine. If you're in such a crunch, you can always go to Goodwill. Goodwill is this huge nonprofit that collects donations of anything, clothes, books, bags, furniture, anything. You can buy secondhand stuff for super cheap, and all you have to do is clean it up, wash it, and use it.
Yeah. I have a good story about that too, actually. So when I was waitressing, when I was in school, I would work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And I would buy these cheap shoes, which were $20, $30. And I would literally go through them every 3 weeks or 4 weeks, not more than a month. I had to buy new shoes all the time. And then I found out about Doc Martens, which is a shoe company based out of London, I think. And I bought one pair. I remember it was $120 or something. And I wore that shoes for over a year. And that right there is buying smart will help you in the long run. Yeah, things may be cheaper, but is this quality? So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is cost per wear. If you're going to buy something like a very fancy dress for $100 and you're only going to wear that for this one occasion, a party that you would never again be invited for, some fancy stuff, then you're not getting much usage out of it. It's just sitting in your closet, right? Yeah, so get something that's more functional as well, as quality.
Sure. And do you want to talk about the next point as well?
Yes. Learn to read fine print. So this is not possible for every single document you sign, but if you're applying for a new credit card, if you're applying for a new bank account, if you are getting a new car or you're renting something, always look at the fine print, read it, because they get you that way. Because on the surface, it's all flowery and beautiful and perfect. They're oh my God, you get 5% cash back, but at the same time, they're charging you a hefty amount of interest and annual fees and all these crazy hidden fees. Yeah. So always read the fine print, and that's how they get you here in America.
Yeah, definitely. And also try to think about everyday financial services, Don't just go open a bank. Just think about debit card. If you're a student, try to apply for a student account in these banks where usually you have to pay a fee to maintain a bank account. But if you're a student, you have free bank accounts. So try to do that. For credit card too, one of the things that students go through is that a lot of international students are preyed upon by these credit card companies because they don't know what credit card company, how they work. And for them, most of the time, they think it's free money, but credit card is not free money. It's even worse than free money because let's say you spend $100 and if you don't pay that $100 in time, they can charge you 6%, 8%. So you'll have to pay $108.
Oh no, I've had a credit card that has had 25% APR.
25?
Yeah, which is really, 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 really terrible.
So be very, very careful about your finances, right? So debit card, credit card, saving accounts. There was a huge class action lawsuit, which affected me as well with Bank of America. So if you went negative amount in your savings account, they will charge you withdrawal fee, but they arrange the transaction. So let's say I spend $400 and then I spend $5 and $5. They would charge me $400 first, even though I did that after, so that they can charge me the account withdrawal fee when I go negative. So they had a class action lawsuit. So these are the things, like everyone looks friendly, but at the same time, please be aware of these things.
Yeah, sales agents are not your friends. They're there to do their job and sell you stuff. So just be careful. Read fine prints. Fine prints are those little disclaimers that are in each legal documents that you need to sign that are very small, which is why they're called fine prints.
Fine prints, yeah.
So watch out for those.
So the next point is try not to borrow. Borrowing money anytime is always... It's a really bad idea. I prefer borrowing it from my family, but if it comes to like borrowing from any banks, or financial services, they usually charge you a huge amount of interest, which is not ideal. So try to stay away from that.
And try to be a minimalist.
Yes.
I'm sure you've all heard about Marie Kondo. Yeah. She's been very popular, kind of preaching the Japanese way of living minimally. And as a student, you don't really need much stuff. All you need is a comfortable bed to sleep in, and a computer, very essential, books, and supplies for your kitchen.
Yeah.
You nourish yourself, you get good sleep, and you study hard. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't need a lot of things to live, actually. And it's kind of like our human nature to kind of see something and want it and try not to be, like swayed by things. Sometimes I get like that too. And I just ask myself, do I really need it? And the answer 99% of the time is no, I don't need it. I just want it at this moment. So try to have that reality check with yourself and try to be minimalist.
To add to that, a good rule of thumb is whenever you go out to a store and you see something you really like that you don't necessarily need, give yourself a 24-hour period. Like sleep on it. Just leave it there. Go back to your place.
It's going to be there.
Yeah, it's going to be there. Don't worry. Like these fashion companies, they replicate things really, really fast. And give yourself that thought. And most of the time, you don't even remember like wanting that stuff so much.
And one of the final points that I would like to add is surround yourself with financially responsible people. A lot of time what happens is that people are swayed by brands. I'm guilty of having, buying a Louis Vuitton bag myself, but there are times where it's when you surround yourself with these people who are like brand hungry, guess what? Everything is made in China. It doesn't really matter. Like the other day I went to a Guess shoe store and these flip-flops were like $85. And I was like, oh, what's so special? I looked at where it was made and it was made in China. And I was like, okay, why am I paying $80 for a flip-flop? So I just walked away. So try to surround yourself with more financially responsible people And money is not for today and tomorrow. It's for longer run. Like try to save for, rather than spending on anything, try to save for vacation if you have that extra money. And as a student, that never happened for me. But, if you're that lucky, hey, just do
vacation?
it. Yeah. What is vacation? Yeah. And even for guys, I see a lot of times there's always these gadget competition, like who has the coolest phone, who has the coolest this and that.
Yeah, gaming consoles and Xboxes and all that.
It's just things. They come, they go. Don't tie in your value with these objects, and don't surround yourself with people who tie their values based on what brand they wear. So try to stay away. 99% of the time, these people will be toxic for you. So.
This is a very philosophical episode.
Yeah. It's going that way from finance.
Yeah, I mean, I think your personality is a reflection of the 5 most important people you surround with. Mm-hmm. So I think it is so true. It's so true.
Oh boy. Okay.
And then final point, just take it home, is calculating opportunity cost. So anytime you're trying to make a decision, you always make a list of pros and cons, or like really hone into what are you spending to gain something, right? So if you want to go eat at this restaurant, what are you giving up to go eat at this restaurant? You're giving up part of your telephone bill. So always make wise choices. Yeah. I know it's not always possible, and it's okay to make mistakes. We've made plenty of mistakes, plenty. And that is why we're like sharing this with you. Mm-hmm. So always try to calculate the opportunity cost. And also, if there's something that is bothering you, suppose, Rama, you talked about how you got a ticket and you wanted to fight it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So a great example for opportunity cost is that I was not supposed to get a ticket. I got a ticket. Well, you always say
a traffic ticket?
Yeah, a traffic ticket. Yeah, a parking ticket. And I wanted to fight it, and I could have fought it, but then I thought about all the time it's going to take, all the energy it's going to take. And guess what? I'm going to have to drive to go to that place. And most likely, maybe I'll get ticket there too, because this is New York City and you get tickets all the time. So those are the things, like, is it really worth your time, right? I know people who travel a really long distance to buy groceries that are $1 cheaper. If you have exam next day, is this really worth your time? Just think about these opportunity cost, and also give yourself some value, right? If it's very stressful, if it's something that bothers you, sometimes it is okay to just like pay that amount and then just, count your losses. So try to be mindful of those things as well.
Yep. It's not worth losing brain cells over something that doesn't matter.
Yes. All right. Yeah. So those were the list of tips that we kind of collected for you guys for this episode of Personal Finance. If you have any more suggestions, feel free to comment on our YouTube channel or send us an email.
Just follow us on all our social media platforms.
Yes.
We're on Instagram and Facebook at the moment. You can also follow our podcast on Spotify. Please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can hit the red button below, and you can also hit the bell icon so that you can get notified right when our episodes are live. Thank you so much.
Thank you.